Hey there, everyone. It's been a while. I'm very sorry for my extended absence and the absence of blood rot talks in general. There's been a whole bunch of reasons why, and I'll get into those when I do a proper episode. I've been planning this return episode that was more of a video about the history of the assassin class. I had a lot of stuff I was really excited to talk about. And I was just doing up that script to record it this weekend. It's Canadian Thanksgiving, so I finally have some time on my hands. And then, in case you missed the news, what I have on screen here happened. The 6th anniversary of Flesh and Blood is happening now, and we have a stream in 6 days as of the time of recording this. And James White put out a teaser to wish us all a happy 6th birthday to the game. I think a lot of people, like myself, we looked at this teaser, we saw the name Dromai, and we were super excited. And I think, aside from some people who are pretty grumpy about board state heroes, which I have known to be sometimes, the reception was pretty positive about that. But after my initial surprise, I took a closer look and I realized that was AI art. And that has been a pretty divisive issue over on Twitter. There's been a lot of arguing about it, and I myself partook in some of that arguing, even though I swore off arguing on the internet. I got pulled back into it, and that's my bad. And I wanted to put my thoughts into a video because I don't think that any of this arguing, any of this discussion over text on Twitter has gone anywhere, has benefited basically anyone. And I think the discourse just is not good. When we're typing things out, we miss people's tones. I've had people misconstrue my words. I'm sure I've misconstrued somebody else's words. And so I wanted to specifically just talk about this announcement, why I'm not happy with it, and why I think James White's response, while not a terrible response, kind of misses the mark on why myself and a lot of other people in the Flesh and Blood community are upset about this. So first things first, I'm going to show you James White's response to the issue. Then I'm going to break it down. I'm going to talk about why I don't think it's as good a response as, some people might think it'd be. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about why I have such a problem with Gen AI being in the TCG space, why I think it sets a dangerous precedent. So I'm going to read you his response now, and then we'll talk about the individual arguments in it and why I might disagree with them. So, James White says, "A hammer is a tool that can build things or destroy them. I like to build things. Things that brilliantly creative people then get to make look good and benefit from once the structure is in place. The tool is not the problem, it's how you use it. Being able to more efficiently prototype future products for internal testing increases product velocity, which means more art is commissioned from our amazing artists for published products. This benefits artists. Prototypes eventually end up in the trash where they belong. We spend millions of dollars commissioning world-class art and showcasing our artists on our world tour. We firmly stand behind our artists." So, before I get into it, I want to make something very clear. I love this game, and I do not think that Legend Story Studios does not support artists. I think they do. They do a lot of good work commissioning artists. They have so much beautiful art in this game. I would never make the claim that Legend Story Studios doesn't support artists. That is not what I'm talking about. People like to make this issue sound very black and white. Either you're saying LSS doesn't support artists by using this Gen AI, or you have to say that they do support artists, so it's fine if they use it. I don't think it's that cut and dry. And I'm going to use an example from LSS's own decision making to show why I think they don't really see hard work that way either. And using Gen AI in this way isn't consistent with their stance on people's hard work. So the argument here is that it's okay to use generative AI that scrapes other people's art to make new art to fit your prompt. It's okay to use that in testing as long as eventually you commission an artist to do a final product. As long as the artist eventually gets paid, it's okay to use that art for testing, to increase product velocity. As long as it's internal use in the pipeline, it's not replacing that final product, that's fine. I would like to draw your attention to something that happened 2 years ago. There was a program called DraftFab And what DraftFab was, is it was a draft simulator online, and they took the Flesh and Blood card images that were available publicly online, and they used those to simulate the makeup of a pack and let you simulate a draft online with bots or with real people. And LSS issued a takedown notice to this team. They said that the use of Fab card images is deemed to be in breach of the terms of use policy, and the DraftFab team were totally cool with it. You know, some people took issue with it, and a lot of people were confused why this was taken down but Talishar wasn't. And I think the difference is that Talishar replaces maybe kitchen table games, but this draft program simulated the process of opening a pack, and so they considered that to be in breach of the way they wanted their card images, their copyrighted materials, to be used. A lot of people thought that maybe it was because they had a Patreon for it, but somebody linked the terms of service here, and it does say you can't directly monetize service apps, but you are allowed to indirectly, where is it? Yeah, for example, Patreon and AdSense, you may indirectly monetize rules apps. I think I said that in a couple places. So you're allowed to have a Patreon, as long as you are not replacing something that LSS could theoretically charge for. Now, I don't think anybody would be able to, in good faith, claim that all the drafts that were happening on DraftFab were replacing real drafts that people would have done, right? You could hop online on DraftFab and do 6 drafts in a night, right? And the reason people were doing so many drafts was because draft is an important part of competitive, and they're going to pay to enter those events. They're going to pay to draft. DraftFab was used for practice. It was for testing. And I think maybe you see the parallel that I'm drawing here. Those card images were available publicly online, just like people's art that Gen AI scrapes are available online, but the use of it is replacing something that an artist or that Legend Story Studios could have made money off of, right? LSS designed this game, put the hard work into making the draft formats and creating the pack layout, and they want to be paid fairly for their work. They want their product to be valued. So explain to me then why, as long as they use this Gen AI in testing, it's okay because eventually an artist gets paid to produce a different piece of work. It's still art that you, by your own admission, are benefiting from, right? It says right here, being able to more efficiently prototype future products for internal testing increases product velocity. So you're claiming that it increases the efficiency of your work, and you're claiming that it increases the velocity you can make products. So if this art does both of those things, why then is it just a placeholder? Why can people claim it's just a placeholder as if that absolves the image of what it's doing? You can't claim that prototypes eventually end up in the trash where they belong, right? You're saying that to downplay the importance of the art, but also say that the art gives you a benefit. That doesn't make sense. I don't personally disagree with the taking down of DraftFab. I understand why they did it. But I don't understand how they can value their own card images that way, but then downplay using placeholder images that use a software that data scrapes artists' hard work. Now, Legend Story Studios is right though. They do spend millions of dollars commissioning world-class art, and that is fantastic. They are providing income for artists, and that should be celebrated. But the problem is, not every artist is fortunate enough to get to work with companies like Legend Story Studios. There are only so many artists you can hire, and I love those artists. But if you look online, if you talk to people in creative spaces, there are mass layoffs happening right now because of this software. There are companies that are taking the hard work that their artists did, using this technology to scrape it, and then using it to replace them. And if this was just internal use, I wouldn't be making this video. But now, James White has chosen to use this placeholder art as part of an announcement for their 6th anniversary to announce the return of one of the most anticipated heroes in the game. If this was just internal placeholder art, I wouldn't have seen it. So not only is it not just a placeholder, it is now being used in promotional stuff, right? Legend Story Studios has a very unique way of announcing things. James White himself has a personal stake in the game and has a very front-facing way of talking to the community about these things. And this, I don't want this to be an example of the stuff that drove Brian Gottlieb off of Twitter, right? People said crazily hateful things about him, and that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I love this game, and I love the artists that work on it, and there's a lot of artists in my life that are being affected by this technology. And I think that James White doesn't properly realize what harm he's doing to these people by using this in an announcement and then making an excuse for why it's okay to use. Not only that, I retweeted this, right? And I said that I was very ashamed to see Gen AI being used in this space. And maybe that was a strong wording. But in the replies I've seen to myself and others who have a problem with this technology, there are multiple people in this community saying things like all artists will be replaced eventually. They are slinging horribly hateful sentiments at people, just really awful stuff. And these are the people you're emboldening, the people who want artists replaced. See you present this AI in a front-facing way, and they're celebrating. Because that means another person that is in a position of power wants what they want, to replace artists entirely, to make them obsolete. And I don't think that's what you want. I don't think that is in line with the LSS that I know and love, with the game that I know and love. This game is all about playing great games in the flesh and blood. And I think a lot of us came to this game because we were fed up with a certain other card game that shall remain nameless. And I don't know if you all remember, that certain other card game, part of what drove people away from it is that they, time and time again, got caught using generative AI in their stuff. There was an example of Gen AI being used in Dungeons & Dragons. There was an AI-generated advertisement for a product. And I want you to think about where that game is now. There's been a lot of talk about slop, and even people who are vehemently defending the use of Gen AI in this context are complaining about slop on their Twitter pages. Where do you think slop comes from? Slop comes from taking shortcuts, from doing things more efficiently at the expense of human effort. And if you want to uphold what makes this game beautiful, what makes this game about that flesh and blood experience, you can't then shrug your shoulders or celebrate the replacement of artists. You can't celebrate stuff like that. Now, those people that want all artists replaced, that don't value art, there's likely no getting through to them, right? They don't value the art, so they don't care about the impact it has. But James White does care. Legend Story Studios does care about artists, and that's why it's important to speak up, because they do care. And a lot of people will say, well, you need to pick your battles. LSS is only doing this little thing, you should be yelling at the companies that are doing worse things with AI. And those other companies are publicly traded, faceless corporate entities that don't listen to the community for their product. And that's not what LSS is. And that's why it's so important that we talk about this issue in a calm way, and we're not slinging insane insults at each other over this issue. And that's why I wanted to make this video. It is very likely James White will never see this. And if he doesn't, that's okay. But if you're somebody who's on the fence about this issue, I beg you to reconsider. I think that there's a lot of you who are fighting very hard to defend something that by your own admission you don't think is that big a deal, and I'd really ask you why you're talking about it that way. Another thing that you might say to me is, well, what would you have LSS do differently? And a lot of people suggest stick figures or Google image search results. But by a lot of people's own words, Google image search results are currently not that much better than just generating AI out yourself. There's AI all over it. But James White is not a random person in their basement trying to make a card game. James White is the creator of a multi-million-dollar company that already has great relationships with artists they already value and a ton of fantastic art. Look at that teaser one more time. There is already reused art of Dromai's weapon right there. There is already 2 hero arts for Dromai. There are other card arts that feature Dromai on them. There's promotional story art that has Dromai in it. There are so many other ways you could use images as placeholders without the need to use this technology, and that is what I would do. And even if this wasn't a returning hero, if this was a new hero, how many amazing pieces of art have you seen in this game that are like random characters on a card, right? Like, there's so many cool new designs for reviled characters that were in Super Slam. They're making a new reviled hero, just pop one of those in as the placeholder. You can change the design later, right? It's going in the trash. There is no reason that this Gen AI needs to be the way that they do this. And there's no way that all of you support the kinds of things that people have been saying about this technology. So, to those of you who have watched all the way through, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.